Let's begin with the foundations. We discuss Spider-Man, Brand New Day, the 2026 Marvel Cinematic Universe entry. This is another lecture. I am Professor Alexei. It's important to understand that our aim is clarity rather than hype.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. I will ask the obvious questions so we do not skip steps. I guess we can start by thinking about what this movie is in simple terms. What are we looking at here?
In lay terms, we observe a reset. Peter Parker alone in New York. No Avengers backup. A police scanner in a modest apartment. Petty crime and mid-tier villains instead of multiversal calamity. That is to say, a friendly neighborhood thesis executed at feature scale. Kevin Feige framed this as finally delivering a proper Spider-Man in the MCU, and the film honors that by keeping threats he can plausibly handle in a few days' time, while still letting the city feel alive around him. In more formal terms, the narrative is a controlled rebaselining of franchise variables. The story occurs 4 years after No Way Home, post-amnesia spell, with a protagonist stripped of institutional resources. Thematically, the film interrogates identity persistence under social erasure. Mechanically, it replaces Stark dependence with endogenous capability. DIY tech, a homebrew AI named EV voiced by Naomi Watts, and even organic webbing. The last evokes Raimi-era semiotics while signaling biological adaptation under stress. The film thereby ties character arc to power evolution, in a way reminiscent of the other storyline without losing tonal plausibility.
I think the next thing we should talk about is why this matters. Like, what are the stakes for the MCU and for superhero films more broadly?
Fundamentally, Brand New Day reasserts that intimacy can scale. After years where Spider-Man operated adjacent to cosmic stakes, the film demonstrates commercial and critical viability for street-level craft. It recalibrates the shared universe gradient so not every beat is a prelude to an apocalypse. Moreover, it refines crossovers as texture. Punisher and Hulk appear not to escalate scale, but to complicate ethics and risk. Savage Hulk reintroduces genuine danger, while Punisher tests Spider-Man's non-lethal code within PG-13 constraints, hence the recurring motif of Peter webbing Castle's mouth when language becomes, shall we say, unbroadcastable.
Isn't it interesting how Spider-Man has not always been grounded on screen? This feels like a course correction.
Clearly, Homecoming had the stark shadow. Far From Home globalized the canvas. No Way Home escalated to multiversal therapy. Here, the design principle is subtraction. Fewer satellites, more rooftops. Fewer gadgets, more ingenuity. The payoff, as reviews indicated, was renewed attention to Peter's inner life rather than his Rolodex.
Building on that, could we lay out a few fast facts and a little history, just to pin down the timeline?
To frame our discussion, general facts first. The film positions Peter alone and resourceful. His powers evolve under pressure. Black eye surges, heightened senses, increased agility, organic webbing. The villains are curated for street plausibility. Scorpion in mechanized tail armor. Tombstone with near indestructible skin. The Hand under a new leader, plus Boomerang, Tarantula, and Ramrod. Punisher is recalibrated for PG-13, and yes, his battle van finally appears. Hulk regresses to savage form. Peter builds the Fabricator to iterate on a Romita Sr. leaning suit silhouette. The new Spider-Sense audio cue reflects his subjective state rather than a running gag. And the homebrew AI EV supports tactics without reintroducing Stark dependence. Production history. The 2019 Sony-Disney rupture and rapid renegotiation preserved MCU continuity. Writing gained momentum by early 2023, paused during the WGA strike, then resumed. Destin Daniel Cretton moved from the reworked Avengers slate to this project, favoring a character-first program. Principal photography began August 2025 under the working title Blue Oasis, with Glasgow doubling for Queens and London stages supplying a rooftop backlot. Tom Holland sustained a mild concussion in September 2025, with a brief pause. Editors slimmed an assembly approaching 3 hours to approximately 144 minutes. The release premiered in July 2026 and opened domestically in July 2026 to positive critical notices. Technically, the film shot bespoke ScreenX plates and select IMAX scenes, underscoring a theatrical thesis in a streaming era.
Maybe one more detail. I heard Tom Holland had more creative input than before.
Indeed, Holland's early advocacy was pivotal, pushing a self-saving Spider-Man theme, proposing a puberty-like evolution of powers, and championing practical stunt emphasis. Not every idea survived, but the core arc clearly did. Moving forward, this creative latitude reads in the performance itself. Speaking personally, I admire the film's fidelity to comic grammar. Quick turn takedowns, moral consequences accruing like interest, and a last frame that justifies the title as a beginning rather than an ending. As it were, that is good mathematics of narrative limits. Let's proceed to the next point. 3 questions to organize our thinking.
Big question 1. Why did the film choose to focus so tightly on Peter's independence after No Way Home?
Historically, Spider-Man's most durable cycles arise when institutions fall away and responsibility becomes unmediated. No Way Home ends with a universal forgetting of Peter Parker. Kevin Feige articulated that ending as a promise to deliver a proper Spider-Man. Cretton and the writers treated the promise as a constraint set. No Stark, no Strange, minimal borrowed infrastructure. The design choices embody that constraint. Organic webs rather than stark cartridges. A self-built fabricator. A mature suit silhouette tuned by Holland studying the Maguire and Garfield builds. And a supporting cast positioned nearby yet inaccessible. MJ and Ned at MIT remember Spider-Man, not Peter. Ned's Spidey Tracker app literalizes New York's chatter about a hero they cannot quite place. Narratively, this isolates Peter without resorting to exile. Philosophically, it asks whether heroism can substitute for healing. The presence of Punisher and a re-monstrous Hulk externalizes the coping spectrum. Lethal retribution at one end, uncontrollable rage at the other, against which Peter attempts to set a third path.
Did this approach change how audiences received the film? Like, did the grounded angle actually help?
We can infer from positive critical notices and discourse patterns that the recalibration landed. Reviewers highlighted Holland's performance, the tactile stunt design by Peng Zhang, and the refusal to turn crossovers into scale inflation. Small delights, webbing Punisher's mouth as a PG-13 workaround, the battle van reveal, the redesigned Spider-Sense audio, functioned as memorable micro-payoffs. In simpler terms, the intimacy felt like novelty after years of escalation fatigue.
Big question 2. Counterfactual. What if Sony and Disney never renegotiated in 2019?
Then No Way Home would likely have proceeded outside MCU continuity, and the Holland iteration's connective tissue would have frayed. Absent the refreshed partnership, Brand New Day's particular equilibrium, street-level scope with MCU texture via DODC tech, Yelena Belova's connective cameo ahead of Doomsday, and calibrated coordination with Daredevil-adjacent narratives, would be structurally improbable. More concretely, the Spider-Man Punisher Hulk triangulation that mirrors classic Marvel team-up energy would be functionally unavailable. We would lose not only cameos, but the ability to place Peter's ethics in dialogue with Castle and Banner as established MCU personalities. The resulting fourth film, if any, would likely seek a different organizing principle, perhaps retreading high school adjacency or inventing a parallel support lattice. In short, the reset we received depended on that September 2019 rapprochement.
Would the character's development have suffered in that scenario?
Arguably, yes. Not because non-MCU Spider-Man is inherently weaker, but because this arc relies on the prior erasures and relationships. Peter's anonymity lands differently when it severs visible MCU bonds. The DODC's alien tech arsenal, Banner teaching at ESU with an inhibitor, and coordinated hand continuity all provide constraints that sharpen Peter's choices. Remove those, and the same introspective plot risks abstraction rather than consequence. Continuity in this case is not mere cameo currency. It is the friction that generates heat.
Big question 3. What open questions does this film leave for the future? And how might they ripple into upcoming projects?
Several frontiers remain. First, Peter's biological evolution. The film integrates organic webbing and sensory surges without exhausting the arc. Future stories can explore stability versus relapse, and whether stress continues to unlock capacities. Second, Savage Hulk. The regression poses a continuity problem and an opportunity. Does Banner regain equilibrium, or do street-level spaces now fear green collateral in perpetuity? Third, institutional dynamics. The DODC's reverse-engineered armory shifts the human baseline upward, affecting any vigilante calculus from Hell's Kitchen to Queens. Fourth, the Hands leadership. A revitalized organization suggests cross-project conflicts without superheroic scale creep. Fifth, the social axis. MJ and Ned's lives orbit a missing center. Ned's Spidey tracker and MJ's new relationship tease ethical dilemmas for Peter about presence versus privacy. Sixth, the persistent mystery of who remembers Peter post-spell, beyond the single exception previously teased. The answer's timing will determine whether Brand New Day's solitude is a season or a new norm.
How might these threads affect films on the horizon, like practically speaking?
We forecast at least 3 implications. 1. Casting dynamics. John Bernthal's calibrated PG-13 Punisher demonstrates that tonality can flex across platforms, making crossovers with born-again era characters more tractable. 2. Action grammar. Brand New Day's parkour forward. Practical heavy design and ScreenX bespoke plates set a precedent for street-level spectacle that others will be expected to match. 3. Strategic positioning. Yelena Belova's appearance threads this narrative into Doomsday-era stakes without making Brand New Day a prologue, suggesting future Spider-Man stories can remain self-contained while still contributing connective tissue. As for research directions, close readings of the cover recreation montage, Nathan Kim's possession choreography as a legible VFX alternative, and the tactical utility of repurposed hardware, such as Spider-Man adapting Shocker's gauntlet even against Hulk, will yield insight into how the MCU is teaching audiences to read action with fewer digital signposts.
Also, maybe it is small, but the PG-13 joke of webbing Frank's mouth feels like design thinking. Constraints creating creativity.
Exactly. A rating constraint operating as a Lagrange multiplier on characterization. We arrive at authenticity by an orthogonal path.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. Can we do a quick recap?
To summarize, Spider-Man Brand New Day is a grounded, street-level MCU story set 4 years after No Way Home, foregrounding Peter's independence, evolving powers, and DIY ethics while integrating Punisher and a savage Hulk for texture rather than scale. Our 3 questions considered why the film chose independence, what might have happened without the 2019 renegotiation, and which open problems the film leaves for the future. For further study, examine Spider-Man's role across Phase 6 and how his solitude interfaces with larger events without dissolving into them.
Thank you for listening. Take care out there.
This then completes our present analysis. Until next time.